Okay, so welcome HBK 100. We're very excited to have Mike with us as a member of the Technology Advisory Council, working really closely with our ELT. Mike is here today to provide you with a bit of thought leadership input. As leaders in the business, it's really important that we connect with this topic, and we couldn't think of anyone better than the guru on this subject that is Mike. So, Mike, I'll let you introduce yourself a little bit in terms of bio.
Thank you. And Adam, if you can put the slides up, that would be great. And
two
while
seconds, Adam, seconds and they'll be up.
All right, great. And so while Adam is putting up the slides, I just want to thank Adam and Charlotte for inviting me, and great to see Ben and the members of the Technology Advisory Council. So today, I want to get everybody caught up on where we are, the state of generative and agentic AI. And I think, obviously, for all of you, right, you have a day job. You don't have the luxury of following this dynamic space with anywhere near the level of, daily drinking from a fire hose that I engage in. Okay. And I think it's really important to understand what is happening outside of the four walls of HBK. And I'm going to spend 30 seconds on this slide. I'm an ex-Silicon Valley engineer, ex-McKinsey consultant, 8-time co-founder of venture capital technology-backed startups with 2 NASDAQ IPOs and 7 strategic exits to people like Oracle and IBM under my belt. But I've also been living this dual life as an educator. And I've been teaching at institutions like MIT and Harvard for many years. And now I find myself spending a lot of my time teaching exec ed workshops around the world on AI to leadership teams for some of the leading institutions in the world, including Oxford and Cambridge in the UK, and a lot of other names that you see here. So let's go to the next slide. So one important part of my intent today is to increase the sense of urgency for the leadership team by recognizing that there are many new entries into the markets that you have traditionally competed in, and there are many more AI-enabled offerings in the markets that you have competed in. Next slide. So I think we all are familiar with this long arc of innovation history. It's been broken into a number of waves, and each wave is successively more impactful. Each wave is successively more compressed in time, especially as we have moved into the digital age and as we've gone from physical atoms to bits. Although your customers, of course, are making physical products. That's why you exist, right? And so this was coined the innovator's dilemma by the great Clay Christensen, who really coined the term disruptive innovation, and many books that he wrote are exactly on this topic. And we are now in the 6th wave, and it is moving at a speed that no one has ever seen before, and which would have been inconceivable even 2 years ago. Next slide. And so the tectonic plates are shifting. And even the mighty Google, which was printing money, is now under serious threat, right? So even organizations that were generating massive amounts of cash, owning 97% of their market, and seeming to be just impregnable, are now finding themselves having to significantly rethink what their business model is. Next slide. So one of the things that I think is important to understand is that, when we saw those 6 waves, each wave becomes compressed. So it took about 60 years for the computer to be widely adopted. It took about 20 years for the internet. And it's taking generative AI 10 years. Now, the thing that you have to recognize is, although many of you probably didn't even hear about generative AI until ChatGPT 3.5 or later, We're actually 9 years into a 10-year cycle. So I think it's really important that people understand that maybe because you were in Denmark or you were in London or you were in Germany, you didn't hear about it, it wasn't happening. No, people in the know were working with ChatGPT 2.0. Okay, so think about Silicon Valley as the center of a pond. And when someone drops a pebble in the center of that pond, things ripple out. And so at the very core of the OpenAI Google paper on the transformer, which changed everything, people began to adopt this methodology long before 3.5 hit the world in November of 2022. So we are way into the cycle. Next slide. And let me just reiterate how important it is to recognize this. So just last week, I moderated a panel at our annual Enterprise AI conference. And what we have here are the representatives of 3 companies that were early to recognize the transformative power of AI and who have scaled. Now, what you may not recognize right off the bat is all 3 of these executives represent highly regulated companies and industries. In the past, we would never have expected companies in these highly regulated industries to be early adopters. As an entrepreneur, I avoided selling into these industries because they were so conservative and so tradition bound that you would have run out of cash if you targeted these customers. And here we now have JP Morgan Chase with 250,000 employees running on their internal AI platform, which is called LLM Suite. We have Josh Gagney, the co-chair of Johnson & Johnson's Global AI Council and the head of their epidemiology business, talking about the 900 live use cases that they already have up and running within Johnson & Johnson, another 150-year-old company. And Monica Kaldis, the MIT CIO of the Year winner, and her company, Liberty Mutual, in the insurance business, is recognized as a world-class innovator, right? Next slide. We also would never have sold to universities before. They were anathema to early innovation. They expected everything for free, and they were really late to adopt. Well, that is no longer the case. I can identify hundreds and hundreds of universities today that have dramatically and significantly embraced AI. Next slide. And many of these universities, and I could have put many more logos on this chart, including Harvard, have 40 to 50,000 licenses for their students, right? Some of these are large public universities. And so they're working with both OpenAI and Google Gemini. Microsoft doesn't seem to have much of a position in this market right now. And even universities are adopting this at massive scale. Next slide. And so we face this continuous challenge as leaders, right? We ideally are on this golden road, this regenerative trajectory, where we continue to reinvent ourselves from product cycle to product cycle, from innovation wave to innovation wave, and we thrive forever. And of course, we know that's not the way it works out for most companies. Most companies come into a market, they have a successful product, they have a successful platform, they have a successful ability to remain viable and relevant for quite some time, but at some point, somewhere, something gets in the way of them continuing to be able to regenerate. And right, that's obviously the absolute antithesis of what this leadership team wants to see happen. Next slide. So forgive me, but I'm going to introduce an example here very quickly to help people understand how quickly things can change. So we look at, on the left, the octopus, and on the right, a cousin of the octopus known as the ammonite. The ammonite, very rigid. The octopus, very malleable. Next slide. And then 66 million years ago, a meteor the size of Manhattan hit the Earth. And in that moment, everything changed. Acid rain began to fall from the skies. The temperature of the ocean fluxed dramatically from extreme cold to extreme heat, destroying the food web that the ammonite depended on. Next slide. And the ammonite basically became extinct at that point. It could not adapt to its outside environment. Its rigid design prevented it from being able to continue to thrive going forward. Next slide. The octopus, however, next slide, is a very interesting creature. And I think there's a lot to be learned from the agility of the adaptive octopus. It has 8 arms for distributed decision-making. It has a neural network. Oh, by the way, it has 9 brains. An octopus has 9 brains, a brain in its head and a brain in each arm. And it has a neural necklace connecting all of those 9 brains so they can, execute seamless coordination as they face changes. They have 3 hearts, but they have embedded deep in their DNA RNA-powered resilience, so they're able to continuously adapt. And I think it's a great metaphor for an organization. Next slide. So a meteor did hit the Earth recently. It didn't do physical damage, but let's make no mistake, ChatGPT 3.5 was a meteoric, impactful event society. Next slide. And so the thing that we have heard from some companies over all of these waves is, whatever the new technology is, don't worry. We've got a lot of time to figure it out. We don't have to change anytime soon. Next slide. And so massive pools of capital are now being formed by private equity firms. Hemant Taneja is the managing director of General Catalyst. And they were very early to recognize that a lot of traditional industries could be dramatically transformed by infusions of capital. And these investments are underway. And we're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars of capital being deployed to bring AI into traditional industries. I can share an example personally. A number of my friends work within portfolio companies under Thoma Bravo. Thoma Bravo was the first company to pioneer private equity investing in tech. And when ChatGPT 3.5 came out, the CTO of Thoma Bravo called in the CTOs of all of their portfolio companies. And the message was very clear. Whatever product roadmap you have in front of you now is obsolete. Tear them up and then come back to me in 60 days and tell me how you are going to adapt your product roadmaps to the new reality. This was 3 years ago. Okay, next slide. And you can skip the next slide. I've already drained it, okay? You might know Thomas von Cook. He's a managing director of one of the largest PE firms in the world. They happen to be based in Europe, and he articulates it well. Even in established or traditional industries, you're going to see a lot of tipping points where old behavior changes very quickly. And if you're on the wrong side of that, it can get ugly very fast. Next slide. So let's look at the industrial giant known as General Electric, right? This was a company that was a startup at one point, founded in part by Thomas Alva Edison, the great American inventor. And it really led to the electrification of the world. Next slide. They had a great 100 years. And then in a very short period of time, GE went from being a world-class industrial conglomerate to not even existing anymore. Okay, and this is the classic disruption cycle. And we see this time and time again, right? There's a high level of confidence, and then out of nowhere, there's a sudden collapse. And by that time, it's just, there's nothing that can be done to keep the company going forward. Next slide. You can skip that, okay? No need for that one. Okay, so let's talk about some of the gaps that we have to address now. Okay, let's get into the specifics. Okay, next slide. We're already starting to see that a lot of your competitors are transitioning to AI enablement. It's already well underway. And your competitors are operationalizing this across the whole value chain, engineering, test, lab, and software, right? We're getting to a point quickly where customers are already beginning to reset their specs around AI-assisted workflows, right? It's either going to be with HBK or it's going to be with somebody else. RFPs are already favoring vendors with co-pilots and predictive agents and signed products. Okay, and so AI native UXs are becoming the new standard. People are expecting AI native interfaces and UXs, right? Why? Because it's just easier and less expensive, right? And so the last thing that we want to have happen is to become some dumb endpoint on someone else's AI platform, right? That's exactly where we don't want to be. Next slide. So I think you know these names a lot better than I do. But one of the names is Agent Nigel, which is under the National Instruments Emerson umbrella. But a lot of these organizations have really pivoted very quickly and very aggressively to move their capabilities into the cloud. Next slide. Okay. Now, when we first started talking about AI, when I gave a talk to the Spectrus leadership team almost a year ago, we were at the very, very early stages of agentic AI. Nobody could have predicted how quickly these would have diffused, but they have. Next slide. And so this is a very profound moment in time, because the fact that people are able to build agents to automate workflows means that everything is up for grabs today. Okay, and there has been significant movement in terms of making them easier to use. Just this week, you may have seen that OpenAI had their annual Dev Day, and one of the biggest announcements that they made was their agent builder. Okay, making agentic creation very straightforward for even novices. Next slide. So what we're going to see here, right, if we look at some of the large incumbent SaaS vendors, it could be SAP or Salesforce or ServiceNow or Zendesk, names you probably know. They are now, by and large, struggling. We're starting to see the early indications that their clients are starting to scale back on usage. Some of them are turning off licenses because these have gotten insanely expensive. And what we see is a new guard of highly ambitious, well-funded, agentic-enabled companies that are coming in and building very specific solutions addressing industry-specific workflows at a fraction of the cost and being paid not for licenses or seats, but for results and impact. Next slide. So this was just posted this morning on LinkedIn. There's a project at MIT called Project Nanda, led by the world-renowned Ramesh Raskar, and he has quickly turned this into a global movement. It's just amazing. This started in January, and the entire world is working around this project, right? And what they're going to present is something called the Instant AI Agent Lab. Witness how fast and easy it is to create AI agents. In this demo, you're going to see how you can build working chatbots and advanced agents in minutes with no expertise needed. You'll walk away with the tools and know-how, gaining practical skills to start building and experimenting offline. Okay, this is the great democratizer. Next slide. And so we're going to go from working agent in minutes and then cover the real world pieces that will make it run outside of the slide deck. Discovery and registry of agents, interoperability, identity and reputation, evaluations, and safety rails. This is going to create a Cambrian explosion of agentic workflows created by agentic startups. Next slide. Okay, and then let's talk about startups. Next slide. Right, and so these startups, they're going to bring a very different mindset to what has been traditionally the way that we've satisfied the needs of enterprises. Next slide. Okay, and leadership recognizes, these startups are not coming here to nibble around the edges of workflows. They are coming in to completely think about transforming the way that work is done. So they're not coming in with an incremental mindset. Let's make things 10% better. They're coming in with the mindset of let's make things 10x better. Okay, that's a very, very different value proposition. Is when you're talking about, enabling your clients to completely adapt the way that they do business. Next slide. Okay, so continuous innovation is what we need to do to stay on that regenerative path, that gold path that I outlined earlier. Next slide. And so one of the big concerns is, especially as we come under the ownership of KKR and PE firms like that, can often be focused on margin enhancement, is we can't forget the fact that we need to have a portfolio strategy. We need to have some meaningful percentage of our resources continuously allocated to reinventing the business. What we can't allow to happen is that we can only make investments in generative AI only if we can somehow justify revenue enhancement in a quarterly cycle or a semi-annual cycle. Okay, that's just not the way that innovation works. We've got to have the courage of our convictions and recognize that if we don't make these investments today, we're only going to wind up being in an even more challenging competitive position. So this portfolio model has been proven to work over decades, and any company that ignores it does it at its own peril. Next slide. Okay, let's look at a company that ignored it, IBM. There used to be a wonderful brand and reputation. Nobody ever got fired for buying from IBM. And if you don't know this, this is absolutely true. This was what was common knowledge for decades. This was the dominant computing platform in the world. Next slide. And in 1984, IBM was named by Fortune magazine America's most admired corporation, and their equity represented over 5% of the total value of the New York Stock Exchange. They were riding high, 1984. Next slide. By 1993, they were near collapse. They were literally putting together a shutdown plan. And the reason that is widely known, and there are case studies around this, and there are books around this, and I teach these case studies, what IBM forgot was the portfolio strategy. 100% of their focus was on Horizon 1, the here and now. Let's just keep building the products that are going to generate revenue this year, right? Let's not worry about, some of the stuff coming out of our labs or some of the stuff coming out of our product groups. Every incremental dollar focused on Horizon 1. And if you do that long enough, your product pipeline goes to zero. And it was a very painful lesson for IBM because they laid off 500,000 people. They laid off a number of heads that was the size of the city of Boston. Okay. And they basically got out of, other than their mainframe legacy business, they got out of the hardware business completely. They became a software and a services business. They reinvented themselves, but only through incredible pain. Next slide. Okay. So as we think about HBK and how we begin to gain some momentum around our agentic and our generative AI investments, right? Let's be very clear. This is not a technology issue. The technology is getting easier and easier to use by the week. This is a change management issue. This is a cultural issue. This is a people issue. This is a leadership issue. Next slide. And so the only way that we're going to compete in this new world is that we need to create a culture, a setting, an environment, a context where people are able to work together to do the hard work of innovation. Okay. And that means a culture of experimentation, right? A culture of trial and error, a culture of we need to be able to have enough discretionary funding to allow ourselves to run a lot of experiments and really determine where the highest impact is going to come from. If there's one lesson that we took away from the panel that I moderated last week from these three avant-garde regulated companies, JP Morgan and Johnson & Johnson, is they started with very broad experimentation. They did not know which ones were going to drive impact. However, they certainly measured that impact very rigorously. And when they finally came out of the other end of their experimentation phase, they were very, very clear about where they needed to double down on their investments. Okay, and now they're reporting significant improvements in everything from sales conversion to customer satisfaction and net promoter score to supply chain logistics, right? I mean, I can go on and on about the metrics, but these are significant metrics. And one common theme across all of these different companies is employees are seeing a 30% improvement in productivity, okay? Across every industry, right? That magic 30% number comes up time and time and time again. So it makes it clearly to me very real. Next slide. So I know that Ben and the TAC have seen this, but I think these are very interesting insights. And so this is research that comes from MIT CISR and one of our TAC colleagues, Niels. And so this is based on thousands of different interviews. And what this basically is telling us is on the horizontal axis, we have a score on the digitization of work, right? So that precedes even agentic AI. That is digital transformation in its entirety. And the higher the number, the better. And then on the vertical axis is the digital fitness of our people. Have they been trained in the use of these tools? Do they have enough skills to be able to have agility to use them? And as always, up and to the right is better. And so in that upper right-hand quadrant, what we have are our sort of ideal employees that are empowered problem solvers. They are operating at the front lines. They are dealing with our customers. They are dealing with our partners. And they are completely capable of doing whatever they need to do to advance the cause of HBK. Okay, next slide. Now, this is not just academic. If you look at the oval in the center, empowered problem solvers are significantly superior to their peers in terms of what percentage of revenue comes from innovation, what percentage of revenue then comes from cross-selling because they're collaborating with one another, very significantly for HBK, what percentage of revenue comes from data monetization, okay, which is at the core of your strategy. Customer SAT scores are dramatically higher. And then revenue growth compared to industry is 19.6 percentage points higher. Margin compared to industry is 15.3 percentage points higher. Next slide. All right, so we want to build an AI community of practice, right? And next slide. That means we need to break down silos, okay? Silos are anathema to innovation, because the only way that innovation gets done is in cross-functional teams. So next slide, we need to be able to look at this as one team, one fight across different product groups, across different businesses, share knowledge, share, there's no doubt that peer sharing in these companies that I've highlighted is another important part of the culture, right? They run promptathons. You bring cross-functional teams. I've led many of these for these companies. And people from different functions are sharing what they believe are the appropriate prompts and the appropriate use cases. And that knowledge transfer flies through the organization. But it needs to be enabled, right? We need to remove friction from having that. We need to align incentives. Next slide. Okay. So I've used this quote often because I love it, and I think it's absolutely critical to recognize. The illiterate of the 21st century aren't those that cannot read and write, but it's about those that cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. We all have a lot of unlearning to do. I've probably unlearned more than I've learned since ChatGPT 3.5 came into the world. Next slide. And so let's talk about the importance of a business moat. And I know that HBK takes great pride in your moat around physics. Next slide. We are not entitled to own our moats forever. Look at IBM. Look at GE. Next slide. Okay, so let me ask you to go to the next slide, Adam. So let's look at why our belief that our moats are going to persist based on our expertise is under great threat. Let me start with an academic study. This was done by Harvard Business School in Wharton, and they spent time with 776 leaders within Procter & Gamble. And not surprisingly, they had a control group, and half the group was given AI and half the group was not. Next slide. One of the things that they learned was novices using AI could match or outperform seasoned experts, democratizing access to expertise. Next slide. Let's be clear where we are. The rate of change of these models has now brought us deeply into the human PhD range. Even the least expensive models that were just introduced, the smallest models, are moving into the realm of the human PhD range. They are able to provide answers to us that are equivalent or superior to a PhD in that space. Next slide. Let's look at, right? And so, I don't normally quote Marxists, but in this case, I think it makes sense, right? There are decades where nothing happens and weeks where decades happen. Next slide. So we're seeing model releases coming at us at blazing fast speed. OpenAI has released 12 new models already this year. We're only in the early days of October. Google, 14 models. Microsoft, 8. You're obviously a Microsoft shop. And each of these models is getting smarter and more capable. What I look at with OpenAI from their 01 model back in January, their reasoning model, to where we are at 5 right now, it's extraordinary to see how far they've come. Next slide. And so Google has created an AI agent framework where they will rent you an AI agent team. You can build out an entire AI lab by renting agents from Google. OpenAI has done exactly the same thing. So they call it the AI co-scientist. Next slide. If we look at the world of coding, the world's most elite university level programming contest called ICPC brings together 3,000 universities from 100 countries. The best programmers in the world at university level compete. OpenAI just released what's called Codex 5, a completely agentic solution, no human in the loop, and it wound up winning. It got a perfect score. In 10 hours, the teams are asked to solve 12 problems. OpenAI's agentic coding capability won by scoring a perfect answer on all 12. And it beat the best in the world: St. Petersburg, Russia, Shanghai, Harvard, Tokyo, Beijing, MIT. So, 2 years ago, people were wondering, can AI code? Well, the answer is it can code. Next slide. OpenAI, 2 years ago, people were saying, well, OpenAI is really good at words, but it's never going to do math. Well, never say never about AI, because Google and OpenAI's AI models just won gold at the 2025 Math Olympiad. They don't do the shot put there or the javelin throw or the 440. They're math geeks, okay? But let me tell you, this won gold. Both of these won gold. Next slide. We're seeing AI performance on neurosurgery board exams. Now we're moving into the realm of being smarter than brain surgeons. Next slide. We're looking at the ability of AI in the red line at the top, large language model for differential diagnosis. Basically, can a doctor diagnose a disease? And we compare it to a clinician in blue who's not assisted. And we look at the clinician is able to achieve about a 30% accuracy rate, while a large language model, and this is 2 years old, the best I could find, is double their ability to diagnose a patient's disease or something. Last slide, next slide. Okay. And so this device has been around since 2021. Okay. And that is the ability to detect automatically in colorectal cancer screenings, automatically in real time while the doctor is, looking inside the body, detecting polyps during live colonoscopies so that they're able to see, and you guys are in the inspection business, right? Highlight very subtle lesions that would just not be observed by the human eye, even by an expert GI that's done 25 years of colonoscopies, and improving adenoma detection rates by 2, doubling. We're going to skip the next slide because it just says the same thing. And then we're starting to see a lot of funding for people moving into the physical sciences space. So these two founders just launched about 2 weeks ago a company called Periodic Labs. The guy on the left was offered $100 million by Mark Zuckerberg to come into the to the Meta superintelligence team. And he said, no, I want to do something real. Next slide. And so what they're doing is they're creating agentic laboratories, no humans involved, to begin to run physical experiments and to create new materials in physics. Next slide. And so that on a seed round was a $300 million seed round. Seed rounds are not the seed rounds my grandfather used to get. My grandfather's seed rounds was, $500,000. Now we're talking about $300 million seed rounds, okay? And so they're building these AI scientists, just like Google and OpenAI have. And these facilities are all about, scientific discovery. So next slide. So hopefully what I have shared with you is that expertise is becoming a commodity. That we may know physics, but these models know physics also. And so therefore, we need to think about other ways to monetize our expertise, other ways to bring our competitive advantage to bear. Now, I am very mindful of the time, and I know, Charlotte, you wanted to open up for questions. I've got way more slides than we have time for. This next series of slides is just research that I have done around what is happening in your competitive space. There's no question that there's been a lot of entry with cloud-based data and analytics, and even Snowflake and Databricks seem to be having remarkable momentum in 2 of your core industries, both aerospace and automotive. So I don't want to belabor that, right? And again, why don't we open this up for now and see if I can't field some questions. There's always time to go through more slides, but I think it's probably a good time to break.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Mike. And Seb just reminded me that we'll keep the recording running for you guys to be able to watch Mike's answers back, but we'll edit it down in terms of that wider share. So yeah, over to HBK 100. Do you have any questions for Mike? Reflections, comments?
Florian, yeah, Dr. Florian, Dr. Markert, please.
Leave the doctor, but yeah, so I have one question because I'm very interested in you said that you have unlearning and relearning is very important, and I'm very interested in the 2 major things you unlearned and relearned while taking or thinking about this topic.
Well, it's not so much about thinking about this topic, it's about how I work, right? Mm-hmm. So let me share with you one thing that we've unlearned as an entrepreneur. Okay, it used to be if you were going to build a company, right, you would hire very, very aggressively, right? You would build out a very strong technical team, and you would raise a lot of money to do that. You no longer need to do that. And then the reason you no longer need to do that is because you've now been able to bring agentic AI into every single step of the company formation process. And especially in the era of agentic coding, or something that is more popularly known as vibe coding, I'm able to build, and I can share charts with you that companies today are getting to $100 million in annual recurring revenue with 5 people in 6 months. If we tried to get to $100 million in annual recurring revenue in the early 2000s, which is what LinkedIn and Airbnb represented, it took them 1,000 people. I can do the same with 5 people. So for those entrepreneurs that have not brought agentic AI or generative AI into their businesses, they are operating at such a handicap that they will never, ever get funded. And they will never be able to scale, right? Now, in the classroom, I've had to unlearn and relearn how to test my students, because I can't give them Harvard Business School cases anymore, because they'll just plug it into ChatGPT and they'll have perfect answers the next day. So what I do instead is I give them cases, short cases that they read in the beginning of class for 20 minutes, and then we discuss them in real time. And when I give them exams, this is going to be horrifying, but I put them in classrooms and I separate them, and I take away their Apple Watches, their notebooks, their laptops, and their iPhones. And I give them questions that they can only answer through a Microsoft Word window being proctored. So I've had to relearn how to assess my students, right? And I can go on, but hopefully that gives some illustration of how much my life has changed. Great. All right. So now I have ciao, Guido.
Hi.
A fellow Italian, my friend.
Simon was before me, so.
You go,
okay,
Guido.
Sorry.
Guido, you go.
Okay, Michael, thanks a lot for the presentation. Very insightful. It looks like you know HBK pretty well. I mean, you made a very precise reference to our company during your presentation.
Yeah.
What is, in your opinion, the single most important things that we should do regarding AI that we are not doing yet?
Well, single most important is a tough one, right? Because there's no silver bullet. But what I would say is this, right? As the HBK 100, you are leaders of this company. And in a few slides that I could have showed you, Adam, let me ask you a favor. Can you go through the deck? There's a BCG slide. It's in green. Okay, it's toward the end of the deck. And I think it would be very appropriate to show that slide. And it's sort of got a histogram with 3 green bars. And it shows the difference in companies where leadership is role modeling the use of AI versus those that are not. So let me leave that up to Adam. I think it'll be easier, Guido, to share with you
Thanks.
the answer once Adam's able to bring it up. Did we lose Adam? He disappeared from my screen.
Yeah, Adam clicked the wrong button and exited the meeting. I'm just going to share the deck, Mike, and then tell me when to stop.
Hey, buddy.
Sorry about that. I got too excited. Where am I? Here we go.
All right. Here we go.
So I'll just flick through. Just tell me when to stop.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Do it. Yeah. Why don't you go into slides? Can you go into slide sorter? It'll be a lot quicker. It might be a lot quicker if you go into slide sorter. And then just scroll down to the very bottom.
Very bottom, yeah.
Yeah, it should be like the last 5 or 6 slides. It's a green histogram with sideways bars on it.
This one here?
Can't bring it up. Haven't seen it yet.
Oh, I'm not sharing. Sorry. Hold on.
Okay.
Yeah. It's all too complicated. This one.
We need an agent, right?
Bingo. All right. So, Guido, here is the one answer. Leadership support matters profoundly for frontline employees. So what this is telling us is that for companies where they are very clearly modeling and vocally supporting the adoption of AI, there's a 41 percentage point increase in employees that are using AI regularly. Secondly, for, again, leaders really modeling AI, there's a 40 percentage point increase where employees have a much more positive interpretation of Gen AI's impact on their employment. There's less anxiety about, is AI going to replace me? Is AI going to, put me in a different and lesser role? And there's a 47% point improvement about an employee's attitude towards AI and their career prospects, okay? And I see this across the board as I travel the world and I do executive AI education. The anxiety amongst the employee base is palpable right now. So Adam, next slide. Let me continue because I think this answers Guido's question. One of the dichotomies is that leaders don't think that their employees are ready for AI. They somehow discount their willingness to be ready. And yet it turns out that employees are using AI 3 times more than the average leadership team understands. That employees are bringing their own AI tools to work. Unfortunately, that could put IP at risk because they may be bringing consumer grade tools. So there's a very big disconnect between leadership groups and their employees. Employees are saying, we're waiting to be trained. We're waiting for the organization to provision tools, right? You can't provision tools without training. And so as a result of that, I think that this is something that you need to think about, Guido, to be very clear, right? That the entire organization needs to join hands and make it very clear that this is a priority for all of us. Okay, so I guess if I was to say this is, if I was to answer that very challenging question, one single thing, and I think about what separates those that have succeeded versus those that are still, plodding along, I think this would be the number one thing.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right. Now that so Simon, I think you were in the queue.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Look, hey, great presentation, right? I guess my question is, what's your thoughts on how a company can maintain its sort of cultural values? So in other words, how do we ensure that we don't lose our identity, don't lose sort of the kind of the values and the culture that we've been developing through obviously, our journey in introducing and growing with AI?
Yeah, and listen, it's a great question. It's a very important question. And I will tell you that it's a question that is deeply meaningful to me. I wound up working for Bill Hewlett and Dave Packard in the very first job of my career, okay? And culture was everything to them. And a lot of the culture was maintained by what they called management by walking around. Okay. And what that means, right? And if you ever have the chance, right, there's a little HP Way book. It's really worth reading, right? It was really the cultural tenets of why HP was able to become this iconic company. But at the end of the day, great leaders model the culture and they celebrate the culture. And what that might mean is in a town hall, employees that have done a great job of embodying the culture over the last quarter are recognized and awarded for it. But culture dies in a vacuum, and culture is very fragile. And there's nothing worse for culture when leadership takes on the position, do as I say, not as I do. So culture needs to have authenticity. I was on the board of a company where the CEO was so inauthentic that he would make all of these, idyllic statements about the culture, and everybody just couldn't possibly believe it because he did not model any of it. So I don't know if that answers your question, Simon, but it takes time and energy, right?
Yeah,
culture requires energy. Yeah.
I guess, are you seeing any, indications that with AI that sort of organizations struggle with that? That's where really.
Yeah, organizations are in general struggling to, make AI work, right? I mean, there are exceptions, but I think it brings another pressure point to culture, which is why the 3 slides I just presented become that much more important. Because if you're telling your employees that, we're behind you, right? That we're going to use AI to make our business bigger, better, stronger, and we see you as an important part of that. Right, removing that fear and that anxiety is a critical part, I think, of keeping the culture positive. Right. So listen, we're living in a world that's coming at us faster than we've ever experienced before. And this is just yet another challenge for the leaders, right? I mean, our jobs are getting really overwhelmingly challenging, but we still have to do them.
Thank you.
All right. You're welcome. All right. I see Frederick's hand up in this, at least within my window. Frederick, hello.
Yeah, hello, this is Frederick. I just saw Tony first, but I think Tony took his hand away.
I don't see Tony's hand, but he's not in my screen right now. I don't know if he
Time's running short, so I figured other
Okay.
people could ask questions. That's fine.
Yeah, first of all, I thought it was an incredible, inspiring presentation, and my question is a little bit more to also our executive team that is present here, because I think you've mentioned a couple of things that I've been talking about to even Ben and others, right? How some of our systems actually drive silo behavior between our business units. I think, I do a lot of sales training. If I talk to salespeople, I've just been in Italy, collaboration between the business units and sales teams and how to best serve our customers. It really requires that collaboration because there's big opportunities that doesn't cover one single business unit. I think AI Week has been amazingly successful. So fantastic, but it also showed how limited we still are in the usage of applications within HBK. I mean, if we would do an amnesty of all people using AI's applications, that are not allowed within HBK, I would really surprise what comes up. And of course, we cannot do it because I've been fingertipped as well. Like, hey, we cannot do this, and I'm all for it. So still, for me, there's a lot of things. So I'm really wondering. There's some very, very strong lessons, how fast we are in adapting to everything that you just presented.
Right.
So
and Frederick, one of the things I'll share with you is, you can now use AI to break down silos. And so I'll just give you a very simple example. So I was working with a biomedical company last week in Cambridge, Mass. And we wound up creating an automated reporting capability using Agentic AI, where all of the different functions were able to have their monthly reports automatically updated, all then synthesized, shared with the CEO of the company. And he was then able to look across all of the different functions, understand what some of the critical challenges were, what some of the key initiatives are. And all of that was being done in real time through automation, right? So there's nothing that could prevent you from creating for lack of a better word, a custom GPT. That's OpenAI language. I don't know what Microsoft would call it, where you can build cross-functional chatbots that are trained to automatically go out and grab information from all of the relevant subteams and synthesize them together and then report out actions. Okay, it's a relatively straightforward exercise today. It doesn't take a tremendous amount of knowledge around AI to do it, right? And now that's just reporting, but there's many ways to kind of overlay what you're seeing with. You're an SAP shop, right? Obviously, it's a big, heavy application. There may be ways to build much lighter weight automated workflows to get at the issue that you're talking about.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
You're welcome. Johannes, I see your hand up, and I think Thomas's hand was up first. So let me go with Thomas first and then Johannes.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you for a great presentation. Mike, I'm in software, so I'm inherently very enthusiastic about AI in our products to realize some custom beneficials in there. Yeah. We in the dialogue with our customers, they're very clever people. So they're already steaming ahead on the AI agenda. But what we seem to see, if AI is the tip of the iceberg, what sits below the surface is the challenge on getting clean data.
Absolutely.
If we don't have clean data, AI won't take us anywhere. Is that a pattern that you see or that you recognize as well?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is the Achilles heel of the AI revolution. Now, the challenge is a lot of companies saw this years ago, right? And they started to, bring in data governance and really start to wrestle that problem to the ground. But that is absolutely an issue, right? And I think another reason why Snowflake and Databricks are succeeding is because they're able to help organizations address these issues. Okay, whether it be structured data, unstructured data. So all of a sudden, Snowflake says they're in 75% of all automotive, OEMs. And I suspect that their ability to wrestle that data to the ground is a very important reason for their success. So could not agree more. Yeah. All right, I've got Johannes.
Yes. It's extremely interesting what you had to tell. So really thank you for that. My question is, looking to the speed of the improvement and intelligence more or less being added, at what point in time, let's say, do we as limited humans cannot keep up anymore?
I'd say we're getting close to that point. And, you know, if all AI development stopped right now, everything that has been commercially made available, it would take us 10 years to take full advantage of it, right? But I do think we are very quickly getting to a point, Johannes. Johannes, let me say this, right? I've been focused on innovation for 30 years. I have prided myself on being hypercurrent. I have never felt more stressed out to keep current. The number of podcasts I listen to, blog posts I read, newsletters I read, news articles I read, VC websites I read, I'm drinking from a fire hose every day. And I'm doing this for a living, right? You have a day job. And so it's impossible to predict where the breaking point is. But over time, I think the industry is going to have to slow down because I don't think the average human can keep up. And yet there's no sign of them slowing down, right? They're going faster. I mean, OpenAI just announced 3 or 4 major new things just 3 days ago. Some of them came out of nowhere. So it's going to be a challenge for all of our human brains. There's no doubt about it. We've unleashed the gods.
Yeah, it's going to be a challenge. Of course, we have a lot of brain power which we never use, right? Which is dormant, right? So maybe that's a way to unlock it as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's an important part of the attitude, right? Let's have this as a strategic thought partner and let's elevate our own capability, right? I think that's the positive way to view it. Yeah. All right. So I've got Martin's hand is up now.
Oh, well, thanks. I don't want to jump in front of Marcel.
Oh, Marcel, I'm sorry. Marcel, please jump in first.
Yeah, so elevating capabilities. Great presentation, by the way. So we're probably dreaming about getting data from our HBK devices into the HBK cloud and running our own, agentic AI on that in order to deliver better outcomes to the customers. Question, should we build or partner with a company like Snowflake? Or should we get 5 guys running on using Vibe to build it quickly? Build or partner?
Listen, I'd have to know a lot more about your capability. But that being said, there's no reason why you would not want to run a quick experiment with a small core team and vibe code some, minimum viable product and see if you feel like there's a path toward owning that IP yourself, right? Because there's no doubt Snowflake and Databricks are competing with you, right? And so what you don't want to do is bring them into your accounts, right? So if you have the ability to create your own IP there, I would recommend you at least experiment and see what the outcomes are, right? Because these experiments can be run at such low cost now in such a short amount of time. This is not a 6-month effort anymore, right? So you can always partner. But if you have confidence in the team, I would give that a run.
Yeah, great.
Do you agree or not?
Yeah, I agree. I did. Yeah, did the same thing in the past. Yeah, just build it yourself. Keep the IP.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Now that other hand disappeared. Martin, your hand down.
Yeah, no, it's still there, really enjoying the conversation, Mike. Thank you. Very, very thought-provoking. So I'm thinking about your ICPC input there on. So if expertise, knowledge is no longer the differentiator for people, what does that mean for the USP of future talent?
This is the question that we're all going to be asking ourselves. But one of the phrases that comes up constantly is speed is the new moat. That I'm able to harness the capabilities of AI and deliver a complete solution for a customer before others can. So I'm able to be there at the moment that they need a problem solved, right? I'm anticipating what's coming down the road, right? It kind of goes back to the question that we heard from Johannes, right? Recognizing that these technologies are going to keep moving forward. how do I have a team that is keeping their ear to the ground, knowing what's coming, having the appropriate relationships to be able to get early access to these capabilities, having the agility to package these different capabilities in a solution that is very specific to an industry problem, to a workflow, right? I think that's really what it's going to come down to. And of course, startups are advantaged in this new world of acceleration, right? So somehow, some way, there's got to be an ability to kind of, again, goes back to the question that was asked earlier about culture. You want to preserve what's great about the culture, but maybe one of the things you need to change about the culture is speed, agility. Because we all have access to the same models now, right? The models are available to everybody. Yep, Dirk. And then I'm going to need to wind down because I had a 9:30 that I'm running late for. So let me take one last question from Dirk, and then I'm going to have to gracefully exit stage left here.
Thanks for the discovery and information that you gave us. One thing that you pointed out triggered my mind. LinkedIn needing 1,000 people where a startup today needs 5. We are being quite a while in the game. I think we have a disadvantage to any kind of startup. Yeah. What's your guidance on a very established organization to adapt and get to an understanding of what not to do anymore that we're so much used to and think newly? I think that's the biggest challenge that I see here.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of my presentation, Dirk, was geared toward exactly that. So I'm not sure if there's much more that I can add. I mean, I go back to this is not a technical adoption problem. This is a cultural adoption problem. That leadership needs to be visible, that you need to, within your department, your business units, you need to let everybody know that the future of HBK will be AI enabled, and it needs to happen quickly, but it needs to happen in a very orchestrated way. So I'll go back to Frederick's point about silos, right? This can't be done in silos. It's not going to work if it's done in silos. You need to leverage the full brain power and capability of the entire organization, okay? So I'd say that, to me personally, that's critical. And then how do we move into small teams, right? Remember the empowered problem solver slide, that bar chart from Computer Information Systems Research? We want to strive to turn every one of our employees into an empowered problem solver. And the only way that's going to happen today is if we break down silos and if we arm them with the tools and then the training to make those tools work and to unleash their own inherent innovation capacity. I think a lot of us underestimate how extraordinary people can be if we create the right environment for them to be extraordinary, and if we give them the tools to be extraordinary. Okay.
So you're saying starting startups within.
I think that model works, right? The companies that I see that I think have done the most brilliant job, they call their employees entrepreneurs and they mean it. They act like entrepreneurs. They are incentivized to be like entrepreneurs. They are given a lot of freedom and autonomy to find critical customer problems, and then are given the support to solve those problems. Yes, absolutely. And that's easier said than done, right? It's easier said than done, but I think it's critical. So Charlotte and Adam, I appreciate the opportunity to address the HBK 100. I am going to have to roll off. I'm now about 15 minutes late for my next meeting, and I appreciate all of the great questions, everybody. Thank you.
We appreciate having you, Mike, and Ben is just going to wrap up, but we understand you need to drop off.
Let's just give me 10 seconds, Mike. I'll see if we can do it fast, please. And then you can drop. But look, you continue to inspire us, and you certainly set a path to make us listen and think. So thank you for your continued AI thought leadership. You're a true partner to HBK, and we'll use this as a springboard to continue the challenge. If while you drop, if the top 100 can just stay on for a minute, but Mike, if you need to run, all right. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, Ben. Good to see you. Good to meet everyone. All right, see you soon. Bye-bye.
Yeah, cheers. Hey guys, and look, kudos to Adam and Charlotte for teeing up this session and bringing Mike into the forum. Mike is a partner of ours and sits on our Technology Advisory Council that we chair at the exec, where we bring in thought leaders to help us to think about the trends and what we need to do to run the businesses. And there's no doubt we are a traditional, nearly 100-year-old company with a strong legacy in physics, and our knowledge is our differentiator. And as you heard from Mike, that's under threat. But I see this as a big opportunity for us, and this is why we teed up the AI week, is not to run from the threat, but actually to lean in and think about how we can leverage it. Because if you bring the power of AI with the power of our domain capability in the markets we serve, with the relationships we have with our customers, it's a multiplier for good. So it starts here. It starts with the top 100. We can't do this as an exec on our own. As you saw in the Procter & Gamble example, it has to start with leadership. So I ask you all to just think about the one thing that you can do or own or take from this conversation and the rest of the sessions this week, and think about how you're going to lean in and own AI. And Adam and Charlotte will help us formulate and strategize on the areas to focus and communicate and align with us all as we go through the deployment of our SR25. So as I close, look, great session, Charlotte. I think it's always interesting to listen to Mike. He's such an inspiring thought leader on the topic. And it's really, we've got to use this as an accelerator for our continued progress. So well done. Thank you for teeing up the session. Really good.
Thank you, everyone, for staying on and bearing with us as we had technical issues starting.
It shows how interesting it was.
Exactly. So I will stop the recording now.